Welcome to the 3 a.m. podcast. My name is DJ.
My name is Charlie.
My name is Sean.
And today is a very special 3 p.m. episode with the one, the only, the highly requested and sought after, the legend herself, the beautiful Leah Hardy.
Yeah.
Welcome back. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to be back.
Good.
Yes.
We are very excited, to say the
Yes.
least,
Yeah.
about this. We tell you all the time, but everybody loves your episode, so
Easily one of our favorite episodes.
we had to have you come back.
Mm-hmm.
So
I remember specifically after recording your episode, we all talked and we were like, that felt like what we could be, like our potential as far as like how good it was. I remember specifically being like, that set the bar super high.
Right. Oh no.
Yeah.
We've never been this good before.
Yeah.
it was insane. It was like a paradigm shift for us. But
I just remember leaving it feeling like I want to do that again. Like, it was fun to do that.
so it was mutual.
Yeah.
That's what we like to hear.
Yes.
We
we're-
also have,
Leah's sister Lynne in the house.
hey yo,
So real quick, if you haven't listened to the first episode that Leo was on, go and listen to that first. That'll help answer a lot of basic questions concerning skinwalkers and Native American culture, specifically Navajo, and yeah, a lot of good insight. It's I say basic questions, but a lot is unknown in like the common knowledge of skinwalkers. Like a lot of people don't know the origins and
Mhm.
the whereabouts and
how to
how
kill
to
them.
become one, how to kill one.
Yes.
And you address a lot of that. And Leah's credibility comes from a long line of medicine men. Her
And
fam-
women.
And women. Very well-known men and women in her family who was very rooted in their culture. But yeah, go ahead and listen to that episode first.
It's called
then-
3 p.m. Leah Hardy on Skinwalkers.
Mhm. Came out maybe like 2 years ago.
Hmm.
And then come back. Right here.
Welcome back.
Yeah. Yeah. Leah, what's going on in your life? What are you up to right now?
Oh, wow. It's crazy to think that was 2 years ago that we did that episode. Since then, I've graduated with my master's. So
dang.
Big girl.
yes.
That's dope. Congrats.
Yes, I am a school psychologist. So
Cool.
just helping kids and especially within the school system. So I do that every day.
So I'm sure you've been busy the last 2 years then.
Yes, the pandemic
Yep.
really
Mhm.
threw things off, but job security, like I'll always have a job.
Like mental illness.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so funny. Right now you're working.
Yes, I'm working. And then it's kind of crazy because I went from being a student and living that student life, and now I'm not. So I'm trying to figure out hobbies and trying to figure out what do I want to spend my time doing now that I have it. So
And have you figured some of it out?
some of it.
Yeah. And what has that led you to?
I'm a loner. Like I feel like I just go home and I just do my own thing. But I bought a kayak. I'm trying to do more outdoor kind of things. So,
Cool.
and then just my sisters own a small business, so I help them with that too.
Dope.
Shout out the business. What is it?
Yeah, it's centered around Native culture. So my sister Lynne, who's here, she's a graphic designer for it, but it's called Ajopatsani. And so
How do you spell that?
I can't tell you off the top of my head.
We'll
Just-
link it in Instagram.
yeah.
You guys have an Instagram page?
we do have an Instagram
Okay, we'll
page.
link it there. Yeah.
Yes. But it's a Navajo word and it translates out to the benevolent sisters, and it's tied to, in my last episode I talked about a specific area that's special to my family, so it's tied to my family's homestead in the land that we're from. So we just make products, make coloring books, shirts, and we also like to contribute to nonprofits on the Navajo reservation to dig wells and those different kind of causes. So we want to give back to the reservation. So that's what we do.
Heck yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
We should get some shirts. Do you sell dude shirts? Cool.
Okay, we're gonna buy
Yeah.
Is it open to everyone?
Yes, we want to make sure that it's not just for Native Americans. We
Dope.
think that everybody should be able to, if they want to learn about it and wear things, we just want everybody to feel like they're,
Mhm.
not like it's just brown people and like it's for everybody.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because like nowadays it's like you don't necessarily know what you're kind of allowed to like. I don't know. Some people might.
hmm
How do I say this? Some people might not be the happiest when you like partake of their culture, like they want to keep it safe and guarded, or some people would openly want to share it and like partake. So it's good to know. I always like being able to partake in other cultures and stuff. So
Yeah.
I get real annoying when I get in Hawaii, pretend like I'm Hawaiian and I'm trying to be as Hawaii as possible. But anyway,
I've realized that, and no culture is without its, flaws here and there, but I've realized that all my native friends, like, they're the most hyperactive about like sharing and educating about their culture.
hmm
And they like, out of like anybody I know, like love, being native more than Sean being white. No,
Dude, all
I don't
my
know.
native friends are the ones trying to block people from doing stuff.
like all of my native friends are like starting businesses and all the like providing content online to educate people about their people
Mm.
and like bring awareness. And it's really beautiful. I love seeing all of it. So
Yeah.
I
I'm
have
just a
a
part of that circle.
homie Sam. He's Navajo as well, photographer. I'll link his IG, but yeah, every photo is about sharing specifically his culture, which I think is dope. Like we need more of that. And it's like cross partaking. I'm just all about it. You know what I mean? Like sharing it with everyone.
And I think that's what if we're going back to the episode that I did, I think that's so it's not those stories that I told are not, they're just ghost stories or like stories that, campfire. These are cultural stories. These are things that not just me, but my family, like it's a family story. People believed in it. People draw strength from it. And it's like a cultural thing and it has a lot of meaning to it. So I think that's why like Native American history and stories, their history is orally kept through stories. So scary storytelling is one of those things that we do, and we're really good at it. So, so that in and of itself is like a culture. Like we're partaking in a Native American tradition now just by speaking our stories and things like that. So I think that's the thing that makes it special and why I love doing this with you guys because I feel like it carries that on it. Like it means more to me.
Appreciate it. One theme from your episode that I took away, and I feel like we have spoken to many times, is not just like what we learned about like skinwalkers and the reservation, which was all amazing, but we talk about like how your mom, your grandma, um, how they treated fear and how they like reacted to it. We constantly talk about that. Like when what did your mom say right before you went out the door? Do you remember? You quoted all
was
the
like,
time.
we
no time.
can't afford to be
Oh yeah.
Oh
scared.
yeah,
Something
yes.
to that effect.
Yeah, we can't. And that's the mentality that I was raised with. And I mean, my family and taught me like there's evil, there's scary things. Like don't think that those things are not real, but you have power over that, and we can't just walk around and be scared. And my grandmother, and that's the sad thing. My grandmother, who I talk about in these stories, who was just such a driving force in our family, she died this past year in April. And so I think both of you reached out to me to do a follow up to do this session, but I just was not in a mental place because my grandmother, who was a strong living force of just pure strength and fearlessness, was not here on this earth. And it's crazy to think because I never thought that she would die or she would pass. So I kind of had to come to terms with processing fear and processing loss and how do I keep going and keeping that mentality going. And I'm good. I'm in a good place. And my mother, now I'm realizing that now it's in me and I have that. It's yeah, if any of that makes sense. But
Totally.
yeah, for sure. The women in my family are don't mess with them. Do not get in their face. Don't mess with their kids. Like they will go at you. It doesn't matter if you're a skinwalker. Don't come around the The women of Gray Mountain. We will give it to you.
That's tough.
What is it? The Women of Gray Mountain?
Yes,
So is that where you're from?
yes, where Zithla Bay is the Navajo words translated out to Gray Mountain. So
Green or gray?
gray,
Gray.
gray.
That's
But yeah,
dope.
so my grandmother has a reputation for taking no crap from anybody.
But I
Yep.
love, so we have a scary story podcast where a lot of times we're sharing, a little bit more lighthearted, spooky things. Sometimes we dive into like pretty intense stuff, but we have an interesting relationship with fear. And we talk about fear a lot. And a lot of these stories are fun because they're scary. But just like the attitude you and your family have towards fear, I feel like is such an important lesson to learn. And the first person I really learned that from was a Maori kid who I lived with in Australia. And we would talk about ghosts and stuff. And he just told me when he was brought up, his grandpa said, like, if you feel a presence, you just like tell it to shut up. You're just like, you be straight with it and you like show strength. And I don't know, for me, it was kind of a foreign concept, or it's something that like I feel like everyone needs a little reminding,
Mhm.
because this can be real depending on like your level of belief. And it's a good lesson to know because I feel like it brings you protection. And it's just a place of power rather than like giving your power up to whatever you're afraid of. But no, that was like one of my favorite takeaways of your episode.
Mhm.
And like we constantly reference it. So
I love that. Yeah, my grandma, me and my sister were talking on the way up here, just kind of reviewing the details of the stories that we wanted to share. And we're just remembering how my grandma was always like, because that's one of the characteristics of skinwalkers is that they come at night. They don't come during the day. They do a lot of their works during the night. And my grandma used to always say, come to my house when it's light. Come say it to my face then. Like, why you gotta come and, do your evil stuff? And so it's kind of like that's our saying. It was like, come to my house in the day. Like, come say it to me then.
pull up.
Yeah, exactly.
Hard. Yeah. That's straight up gangster. Dude.
Yes.
Like
yes.
your grandma is the one who's saying you should be afraid.
They were probably
of
afraid
us.
of your grandma.
Yes.
Dude.
Yeah, for real.
I'm flipping the tables here. Yeah.
In
Yes.
Skinwalker training, they're like, dude, stay away from like, Gray Mountain.
Everyone else,
Chill over.
freaking
Yeah.
Gray Mountain. No.
Don't go there. Don't go there.
That's
Yeah.
dope. Now I know we've directed people to go listen to your episode, but if you could kind of briefly like talk about your background and history and maybe just refresh us on like what Skinwalker is, if that's okay.
Okay, so a history of skinwalkers. So I just want to put it out there that I am one person. I only speak exclusively for my culture, my Navajo background, but within the Navajo culture, it's a big reservation, and there's a lot of members, and so each region has their own. This is what a skinwalker is, and this is how they came to be. So I can only tell you what I was taught and what I was learning and things like that, but it may differ from another person who's from a different part of the res. I say res, and that's short for reservation. So it's different.
Okay.
So this is just me. This is my story. This is what my family told me. If anybody want to at me, go at
Pull
me.
Pull up in the daytime.
Make sure
come
it's not
for me. But I will say that. So the Navajo term for a skinwalker is Yenascloshi, and we just shorten it to Yanni. And it's basically it's a witch. So this person has made an alliance with an evil power to gain glory and power and riches and that kind of thing. And the way that you become a witch is that you have to kill someone that you really, really love. And in that act is how you gain that power. And then you use the bones from their dead body and you grind it into powder, and they carry in this little pouch, and that's what they use to carry their spells and their different things like that. And the term for that is gushing, like they're witching you, they're casting their spells or whatever on you.
Is gushing an English word?
It's a Navajo word.
Oh, gushing.
Yeah. And so they originated, I think, back in the days. So the Navajo culture, or Navajo people, originally back in the ancient days, we were a warring people. So we were just known to like be really ruthless and to because you have to be, like, if you were trying to survive against like different tribes and as the Mexicans and Spaniards, were coming in, we're trying to protect our culture and different things like that. And so, from what I understand, the Skinwalkers originated because their powers were used to protect warriors, but then along the way, that it became evil. People started using it for, um, purposes to gain their own power for themselves. Native American culture relatively is like a collective mindset. You care about everybody else. Um, Nothing you do is for you. It's for everybody. It's for the people. That's what the Navajo is. I think it's a Mexican word or Spanish word, but the real name that we call ourselves is Dene, which means the people. So
We've come across that.
yeah, so
I think I
it's
said Dine, so my
Yeah.
bad. I didn't know how to pronounce
Yeah,
it.
Dene.
yeah, it's Dene. So yeah, so witchcraft and they can also shapeshift into animals. So um and that's of their own choosing. The most I've ever heard, like they look like dogs or wolves or bears, or that's what I've heard. But most of the interactions that my family has had, they've taken shape of like horses or weird looking dogs. um they they go out at night, and the best night for a Yanni is Skinwalker is a dark night that is clear. So it's a clear, dark night, and it's windy, so that when they walk, their tracks are blown by the wind, and they communicate through whistling. So you don't ever go to the reservation, especially an Navajo reservation, and whistle at night. Don't ever do that. I'm not kidding. Don't do that. Um, because you're calling them to you. You're calling evil to you. So it's kind of like a basic. I mean, there's more I can go into, but that's kind of like the basics of Skinwalkers.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So from last time, like the stories that you have tonight, have any of them occurred like in between now and the last time we saw you?
These ones happened in the past, but there has been little things that have happened. So my parents live on the Navajo reservation, and they live in the middle of nowhere. And so they will call and say, "Oh, this happened and this happened," and they're like nonchalant about it. But
And what's your reaction?
we're just like, we've kind of gotten used to it too.
Same
We're just
as
like,
well.
"Oh, okay, well,
Oh dang, well.
should have just stopped." Like, why doesn't it stop? But yeah, and then but it's not like this grand scale of these stories I'm gonna tell, but they do happen, and yeah.
And then we have a couple photos if you want to show of like where you grew up.
Yes. Yeah, some of the pictures that we have today will show the area that's my first episode. That's where a lot of the stuff happened.
Like after you left, our research has continued and we've looked in different sources. Like DJ found a huge book that was compiled about like skinwalkers in particular and skinwalkers like in Utah. Do you remember that book?
Stalking the
I don't.
tricksters.
Oh yeah, stalking the tricksters. It was this
White dude.
it was this white dude, but he like lived with a lot of different natives for years and years. And tried to learn everything about them and just like wrote down all his studies and findings, and he talked about a lot of their lore surrounding uh, these Yannis, and how different tribes, like you said, you're speaking to your own experience, um, how different tribes had like different versions of it, or maybe even like these Yannis or witches from other tribes had like other powers and
They
like
were like known for different powers
I
and
see.
stuff.
Yeah.
so they were like unique. They were like different characters almost. So it was pretty fascinating.
He like went into the hierarchy as well and how they would meet at like the witching rocks. Is that what he called them?
Yeah, in this
So I
one
don't
area
know.
he was in like New Mexico or something, there was like a famous landmark called the Witching Rocks, and a lot of the skinwalkers would meet there.
Anyway, so we've like learned a little bit about Navajo culture, like here and there. One thing I heard, I covered the boarding school situation. And in fact, my mom, every summer there was a program in Utah where they would take kids from the reservation and they would live with a family up here and go to school up here. My mom's adopted, she's Japanese, so she was adopted by a white family. This white family would take in um, a couple Navajo boys every summer, and they like lived with them every summer. And then my mom went and lived with them on the reservation in the summers. So she was telling me things, but I covered like the boarding school situation, and I feel like it was kind of like an unspoken thing people just like didn't talk about. Like they kind of knew the history with that. But recently, with what's happening in Canada, where they're just like really exposing just like the depth of what happened, it's like getting talked about more and more. Unfortunately, it'll probably like the dialogue will stop at some point, which is really sad. But did you guys have any thoughts or like feelings on that, or like what was that like for you, or was that talked about like in your communities and stuff? I don't know.
Oh, of course. We know that that's like firsthand because of my parents are boarding school survivors. A lot of people think that, that was in the 1800s and different things like that. And like, no, that was going on to like the 1960s and 70s here in the United States. My dad, my mom did that situation you were talking about where they went and lived with families. So my mom lived with her adoptive family in California. So she escaped boarding schools, but then my dad grew up in a boarding school, and he was just telling me how he was punished for speaking his native language, and he was there since he was like 5. And so he in one story it really like hit home to me their experience. He was telling both he and my mom, they were at both 2 different boarding schools on the reservation, but when they bring the kids in, the dorm mates, who are white women, would make them, take showers, and they would mark their elbows and places with Sharpie markers, permanent markers, and they were told to scrub until the Sharpie was gone. And that right there is like basically like these kids are dirty. These kids are coming from a different culture, from a different way of life, and it's wrong, and we're going to scrub it out of them. And so then that's how my dad perceived it, was just like what's happening to me. And he's 5. These kids are young. They're still formulating their perspective and their schemas about life. And so my parents went through that, and my aunts and uncles, and my great grandfather also attended a boarding school in the early 1900s. And so it's been, and it stopped, but in high school, my sister and I, we both lived in a dormitory type situation. We weren't forced, but we lived like a modern form of boarding school too. So
in a way, it's like still there's like forms of it.
There's like forms of it, but it's not forced. It's not like, hey, we're gonna like make you assimilate, but it's still under the Bureau of Indian Education and the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So it's something that the government still has their hands in.
The Bureau of Indian Affairs?
Yes, the BIA.
Who runs that? Not natives?
The government does. So it was created as the U.S. government was being formed and all these different things, they have to, deal with the native people that were here and put them on reservations and do with their treaties. And that was through the Bureau of Indian Affairs. That's what was created for that purpose.
Do you know how many officials in the BIA are Native American?
I don't know.
It doesn't sound like it's a substantial amount.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing it's probably not. But I do know that there are a lot of like I think our secretary of under the Biden administration, what was it? The secretary, Deb
Holland.
Yes, I'm.
Your secretary.
She's the. I'm so bad, Deb. I messed up your name and your title, but she. Under the Biden administration, she is one of the first Native Americans who is like over the land and the resources, and she's trying to now. Her mission right now is to get a lot of the like derogatory names for different national monuments, like Squaw Peak, for example, in Provo. Squaw is a derogatory word for a Native woman.
Whoa. I had no idea.
I had no idea either.
Yeah, it's what they used to call them in the past. And so now it's her, she wants to have any national monuments or national parks who have squaw within their titles to be taken out.
Wow.
When we ask you questions, obviously, like, you're one person with one experience, so we're kind of asking you to speak on behalf of like the whole Navajo people. But so sorry we're doing that. But do you feel in your family or in yourself that there is any like move in the right direction, like it's getting better, or it's still just like not enough is happening?
You know, I think I study psychology, and I studied it for a reason, because I grew up seeing alcoholism and drug use, and just the breakdown of the family and the loss of culture. And these things are historical trauma, and they are tied heavily to boarding schools, because you take a whole group of people and you tell them that their way of life and their traditions and their culture and their language is basically wrong and not the norm. You're not white, basically, is what they're saying. How can you not have, you know, these issues? How
Like
can you?
generational too.
Yes. How can you not have? And not only that, but it's then the saddest thing that is really hurtful is that, especially revealed in these things that you're talking about in Canada and the First Nations up there, it was that a lot of these children were sexually abused. A lot of them were raped. A lot of them were physically abused and verbally abused. And so, like, that also takes a toll on a people where you can't even protect your own children from that. And so I think there's just a lot to overcome with that. And I think that could be something for all Native American tribes, that we know that it's a problem. We know that these things happen, but it takes a lot to, I mean, if you think mental health for one person is hard to work through, like, how about a whole group of people? And so I think that it's going to take some time, but I'm hopeful that my children and their, you know, the generations that come after me can try to see some hope, and our people are resilient. Like, I'm full-blooded Navajo, and that's what the government didn't want. But guess what? We're here. I'm alive. I'm here. And
Hold up. Come at me during the day.
exactly. You tried, but no,
Damn.
we're still here.
That's beautiful.
That really is beautiful. So with a lot of this, I don't know what you call it, civil unrest, just atrocities that have happened historically and even today, a lot of people tend to shy away from looking in that direction, like Charles was talking about. Like, media coverage will come, but the media only lasts as long as, you know, the next big headline, and then people's attention shift to the next thing, you know, and whatever was being talked about 6 months ago is kind of in the past for the general public. But the people who are still affected by it are still dealing with it. Like, the problem doesn't disappear when the media doesn't talk about it. As, I guess, like a native Hawaiian, I've been told a few times that Hawaiians are just angry all the time. We're always trying to find something to be upset about. Have you ever been told anything like that, similar to that,
Oh,
as a Native American? And
Yes.
what do you have to say to that?
I mean, you're gonna start me on a rant. Like, you guys came here
Let's
for
go.
like a scary story, but like
Episode 3. Let's cover this now.
like, I think, yeah, it's almost like, yeah, like, why you guys? Everything's better. Why are you guys trying to stir the pot? Like, why are you guys so mad? Like, get over it. It happened. I think that's the number one thing I hear is like, that happened so long ago. Things are different now. Me and my sister joke because at the beginning of the pandemic, people were like, you know, up in arms about their rights and access to toilet paper and whatnot. And there was this meme that was going around in the Native community on social media.
First of all, memes are just beautiful.
Yeah,
I like spreading info. like
Yes.
shared experience. So I just love like we get to hear like a reservation meme now. That's so sick. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. Yeah, so there's this meme going around where it's like, oh, like you white folks are crying. Welcome to being an Indian. You've been Indian for a month. And that's basically saying like you guys are complaining about these things, and yet when it's happening to you, it's like, oh, let's drop everything and let's feel sad for you. But when it's coming to us, and exactly what you're saying, DJ, like, oh, let's pay attention to these issues that really matter. It's like, get over it. You know, stop crying about it. And it's like, it didn't happen to you. And until it happens to you, then you're going to understand.
Yeah, I don't want to take your spotlight, but maybe you can relate to this sentiment. I personally believe that I try to empathize as best as I can, uh, and I try to look at what's at stake. If you look at Native Hawaiians, and I think the main thing we're concerned with is like our identity, like everything that comes along with it. And you were talking about like in history when people were invading and encroaching, you were just trying to protect your people and everything that your people are: language, art, dance, song, food, resources. And the US is a new country, you know? It's just a couple hundred years old. Whereas you've been here how long? You know?
Yeah.
Long.
A millennium? Longer, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
Same as Polynesians. So I think with that time, it's given our people to grow a little more in culture than the US. That's not to put down the US, because in time, they'll probably develop a culture and like we already have sub languages in the US, regional. It's definitely on like a lower scale, but at one point, maybe they'll develop into something somewhat similar as us. But because of how long we've been here as a Hawaiian and as Navajo, like you've just had time to grow and you're just trying to protect that. So it's easy for people who don't have that stance to say, what are you complaining about? It's like the preservation and like perpetuation of my people. Whereas it's like you're kind of still, I'm not trying to like stomp down on American culture. Does that make sense?
No, yeah. I think
But-
one of the biggest or like most prevalent fears in the world is fear of the unknown, right? So even by doing this, like personally, and I can imagine a ton of our listeners have never had a chance to like have an open, honest, and vulnerable dialogue with a Navajo person, right? So even just like sharing this beats down that like ignorance or like not knowing, not truly knowing. So we could have so many listeners listening to you, and then like being able to empathize and understand, you know, what was lost, right? So I don't know. I think a lot of that is like what happened. Like Europe came over, no understanding of what was set up here. And to them it was like the natural reaction is fear, like must change that, right? And like you shared a meme with me the other day, like when Puritan missionaries went to Hawaii, they thought Hawaiians were lazy. They thought they were so stupid because Hawaiians were surfing or not surfing. They were like chilling in the beach by like 12 in the middle of the day. And they were like, you guys are so lazy, like you don't work. What they didn't know is that Hawaiians had like gotten to the point where they were so efficient with their farming and everything that like they could do that. And like that's what they valued was like time with their family, like in the beautiful, you know, and it's like you hear that and you're like, those idiots, like they didn't understand that was the higher way of living. And they came and just like set everyone back. I don't know, but like to your point, I'm just trying to.
Yeah, that was just like kind of my response to people who were like, "Why are you always mad?" It's like, what's at stake here?
Hmm.
Like, there was a generation where Hawaiian language was outlawed. Any Hawaiian practice, dance, all of it. You lived in Hawaii for 4 years, and you learned about that a ton. So, one generation, and we lost a ton. I'm not fluent in Hawaiian.
Is that where maybe like the feelings come from? And why like you're annoyed when people are like, well, why are you still mad? It's like, because they're still lost. Like,
No matter how long the stem is, it's still coming from a specific point. and time. You know, the butterfly effect. One drop in the pond will cause a ripple on the other side, you know. So, yes, we live here and now, but I'm still a product of my past to a pretty good extent.
And you're witnessing the effects like still.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I think it's important to consider both. Like, we definitely have, I think we have more resources now. There is a lot of good, but it's not without its flaws.
There's still pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because I do love the United States. Like people are always like, well, you probably hate the U.S. I'm like, no, I don't. Like this is my home. Before it was the U.S., it was my family's home. But I think just simply acknowledging how this country came to be is important. Just simply acknowledging, like, yeah, we have the Constitution. Yeah, we have all these different things that were great, but at what cost and to whom? If you can just simply acknowledge that, if you listeners listening to this can really think about that and acknowledge it and acknowledge that a group of people, not only Native Americans, lost out and we're still hurting today. If you can just be open-minded to that and think about that and really process that, I think that's where we get to the places where we can, improve and be better. So hopefully that happens.
Kind of going along with that, in my research, I really looked into like the boarding school history, and I like looked where it started with, I can't remember his name, but it's like his last name was Pratt, just like all this stuff. And then I watched interviews of people who grew up on the res. They would talk like they were taught by their parents if they saw a van to run and hide because it meant like they potentially could be taken away. And they spoke to the Navajo's connection to like their home and the actual land being really, really strong. Is that like true for you guys and your experience?
Yes. One of the traditions in my family, and I learned again, I don't know if this is for everybody, but for my family specifically, we were taught to, your identity is part of where you come from in your land. Like, for example, my grandmother attended all the births of her grandchildren, and she has like 40 grandchildren. She has 12 kids, and my mom's number 8, but so she has a lot of grandchildren. So she attended each birth and then would take the placenta and then she buried it at the foot of the mountain where we were from.
That's what I was getting to.
Yeah, and so she was always, and she told us this is always so that you remember where you come from and that you will always have a desire to come home.
And that connection, just like you are literally like one with your land.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I had heard, and I just wasn't sure if that was like prevalent in the like all of Navajo culture, but interesting.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other thoughts when it comes to preservation and
Just reverence for what's happened.
I think just also supporting in any way that you can, whether that be you read something about Native American culture or you I just think it's so important to hear from authentic sources of information. Because and also knowing that, my experience is different from another Native American's experience, and all tribes are not the same. We're different. So if you can just find those authentic sources and listen and tap in and learn from them, I think that will help you to anybody. And that's something I do, even though I'm Native American. I love to learn about the First Nations in Canada and all these like different tribes in the East Coast and the West Coast because I don't know. So even I'm Native American and I need to know about other people.
No one may know this, but is there any Native American podcast? Does anyone know?
I know we follow some on our Instagram page. And there's a YouTuber. I think there are more YouTubers than there are podcasters. But we can give you a list of people.
Yeah.
Like they're like escaping my mind.
it's you. You're the podcaster.
Oh.
You might need to start doing it.
I don't know. I don't like hearing
It'd be
myself
called
on the
Come in the
mic.
Day, dude.
Oh.
Wait, is that how you say it?
Come in the daytime or come at day.
Yeah.
Try me at daytime.
Yeah. Whatever your
Oh,
grandma
come,
said.
I was like, wait, what did he say?
Excuse me?
Come at me during the day.
There you go.
Dope.
Yeah.
Well, we'd love to hear your stories because they continue like as fun as they are, and because of like the spookiness factor, like they're equally just as educational as like what we've been talking about so far. And you've done a really good job at that. So
Okay. Yes. So you want me to get
yeah,
started?
it's all you.
Okay. So I when I got here, I didn't know that we were going to be recording on the video. So just heads up, guys, that I talk a lot with my hands. Um, so this first story is an experience that I had. Well, it's my mom's experience, but me and my siblings were there. But I was a kid and I was too young to understand. I don't remember exactly what happened, but so this story begins in a summer night. So one of the things on the reservation is that a lot of houses don't have air conditioning. And so what you do to cool off at night is either you open all the doors and windows in your house, or you pull out a mattress and put it in the back of a truck because everybody has a truck, and you sleep in the mattress in back of your truck. And for me growing up, it was really fun because you had your cousins come over and you would crack open a watermelon on the tailgate and it's a nice breeze and finally the sun going down and you're just enjoying life. You're laughing and you're eating your goodies, and hot Cheetos is a staple too. Um, and then so this particular day, it was my mom was the only adult that was there, but she had me and my three siblings and then about four of my other cousins. And she said, "Okay, guys, get ready. We're getting ready for bed. Pull out the mattresses." And there was two trucks there, so we put a mattress in each bed of the truck. And um, my my mom backed up the trucks up, and there's a porch. And so she went to go sit on the porch, just enjoying the breeze. And then we were laying down, getting ready for the night. And the thing about Arizona is that I don't know if you guys ever been there, but the skies are big. The sunsets are gorgeous. And so at night, though, in this particular night, it was a full moon, and you can see. It's almost like you don't need a flashlight because you know where you're walking, you know where you're headed. And that was the kind of night it was. It was a beautiful big full moon. There was light you can see. There was no breeze, and so it was just a nice night. And so my mom gets us all settled in and we're all kind of just drifting off to sleep. And there's a dirt road that goes in front of the house and it forks. And so she was she said that she looked around and she noticed that the dogs that we had, they were scared and they started kind of backing off and were hiding underneath the porch. And she said that's weird because usually animals, when they're scared, they act a certain way. And so my mom was like, kind of, okay, I need to be on alert. And so she said she was sitting there kind of just looking around, and then straight ahead in her view, she said she saw a dog. It looked like to her it was a dog, and it was sitting there just like politely just sitting there. And she said it creeped her out because that dog looked like it was staring at, like just sitting and staring at us in the house. And she said, "Okay, that's not normal. Dogs don't sit quietly and still like that." So she said she just continued to watch it and it watched her. Um, she was just like, "You know what? It's gonna move. It'll be fine." And then time passed on and she said it didn't move. And became the dogs then were more tense and they just wouldn't come out. And so she said, "Okay, this is not normal." And so she said that she was getting ready to, she says, "Oh, she wanted to get the truck and turn it on and go shine her light at it. But she said, but my kids are in the car, like the kids are in the truck." So she gets up and she's starting to, move things around and trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to do this? And so she's like, at that point, she said, I just got overwhelmed. So I sat back down because I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to do this. And she looks up again, and that dog was a little closer. Like it had moved from one side of the road to the next. And it was still sitting very, very still, looking straight ahead, but you can't see the features of it. And so she's like, oh my goodness, like this thing's getting closer. And then eventually the two of the dogs got brave and they started barking at it. But it wasn't like it was like an aggressive bark because I think they could sense that my mom was scared at this point. And so my mom was kind of like, okay, it's now or never. I gotta figure out what this thing is. And so she says that she was walking up to the truck, was gonna open the door handle to jump in. So she gets in and then she looks up, and that dog was a little bit closer. And she's like, so she goes to turn on the light because she's like, this thing's getting closer. Goes to turn on the truck to shine the light. But right as and if you ever driven a truck, you can kind of hear it start to turn before the lights come on. And so that thing, whatever it was, well, we know what it was. She started to turn on the truck, and then it stood up.
On two legs.
On two legs. It stood up, and she said she got so just like, oh my gosh. And so she got out. She immediately jumped out. She turned on the vehicle, like, oh my goodness, turned it on, shined the light, and then she told us to get up. In this part, I do remember she woke us up and she said, get in the house. And then we all ran in. She turned off the truck and followed us in, and then she was waiting, and we were still sleepy, so we just went in and laid down. And then she was just waiting for it, to walk up the porch, and she was waiting for it to tap on the windows. She was waiting for it to call out, and she said she stayed up till about like 3 hours later and nothing happened. And then the dogs were normal. They were out lounging around and were not tense and were not barking anymore. And that's when she knew that the coast was clear.
Legit got goosebumps. That's terrifying.
Definitely don't like how it got closer every time she looked away or was like doing something and then would look back and it was closer. I don't like that.
And to have to go through that alone. Like
Yes.
everyone's asleep, no one's home. It's like, oh crap, like this is on me. And even the dogs are kind of like take care of this.
They're like back under the porch.
It's getting closer.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
And wait, you were sleeping in the truck?
Yeah, at this point we were all like just laying out sleeping.
How old were you?
I think I was like
Young.
7, 6. My sister here was like 4.
So when did you find out about this story?
She didn't tell us she told us the next day. She was
Oh.
like, why? Because we were thinking, why'd you take us inside? Like it was hot. Like we wanted to sleep outside. And she's like, well, this thing happened. And yeah, and then my grandma, she was alive at that point, she's just like, well, you should have told her to go home. Like she's just like, you should have told her to get out of here. But that's my mom, and she said that was one point in her life where she kind of just felt like oh my goodness, so what am I gonna do? Because it's not just like my safety, it's my kids' safety.
Right, yeah.
Like I have all these kids, but the funny thing is we still slept out at night.
That didn't
Like
stop
the
you.
next night we were like, pull the mattress out, let's do it.
So the sense of like fearlessness was instilled when you were young.
Yes.
So you didn't ever have like a huge problem, it sounds like.
Well, I mean, we were told that, but there are scary stories that are like more detailed than the ones I'm sharing. I'm not sharing them because other people told me them, and I don't want to share other people's stories if I don't have their permission. But
I get it.
I mean, I could like go into detail, like
We'll
really
turn the
good
mics
detail.
off and then you can tell us.
Because and those are the stories that we were told. It's like these stories that are like in detail specifically of what skinwalkers do, and that used to scare the crap out of me. Like growing up, we would have a lot of houses in the reservation don't have running water, so we would have to go to the outhouse. And my older cousins, they would whistle. Like we would go to the bathroom and they whistle. And we would cry and we would be so
Like
scared
at night?
at night.
That's messed up.
Leah told
Yeah.
me not to do that. So
Exactly. But they did it to like scare us. And it worked because we would like pee our pants right before we got to the outhouse because we were so scared. Yeah, like ready to like fight and like go at it. Yeah.
Charles told me a story once where he had me listen to this story when we first started hanging out, or I started hanging out with these guys, and they're like, "Bro, listen to this story." And it's this dude talking about his when he was like an ex-policeman, and he like visited this house that was supposedly haunted, and in this story he encounters like the girl who lives in this house, and he's crawling in like the air vents in the house, and he sees the girl in the air vent. Terrifying. So like later that night,
well, and one part of the story is like she whispers like they're in the vents, and so like that's a part of the story.
I'm watching you.
Yeah, I'm watching you.
You can hear it from the vents.
Yeah.
Like
Oh my
the whispers.
goodness.
I'm watching you. So that night, I like crash at their house because I'm like, I don't want to go home by myself. And I'm using the bathroom, and there's a vent right above me. So for like the next week, I would have my phone on selfie mode so I could watch the vent, and I had like my fist in case something was coming from the vent, just like above my head, so I could punch whatever was coming out. But so I get it, you know.
Yeah.
So I relate.
Yeah.
I fully thought you were about to say like the key turn, the car turned on, and the skinwalker was gone.
That's
what I thought you were
that
going
was
to
going to
say.
happen too.
Because we have heard other stories where like they have an aversion to light because they want to protect their identity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I thought you were going to say. So you said, "Oh, I stood up." That like I was not ready.
So it's still like retained, like the form of a dog.
Yeah. Well, one of the things is that they wear skins, like animal skins. And like they
Almost
wear,
like a costume.
yeah, like they wear the headdress and the animal skins and the loincloths, and they put powder over themselves, ashes and whatnot. So
Would that be called? Is it regalia?
no, regalia is like
That's more ceremonial.
that's more ceremonial
Okay.
things. This is just like their skins. Like
Okay.
there's no
Okay.
respect given to their titles and what they wear.
But can you explain maybe to our listeners why they want to protect their identity?
Yes. So one of the things that happens if a skinwalker's identity is revealed, and my next story is a story about that. But they protect their identities because, you know, like I said, they go around at night. They want to curse you, and their gain is for power and money and wealth. And so you want to make sure that you keep that, right? You want a place in the community. You want to have people be jealous of what you have, but you don't want people to know how you got it. So if a skinwalker's identity is revealed, then they have to kill themselves. So they and it's like their law. They have to.
Like they're bound by that.
Yeah. My grandma like used to always joke like, find out their identity. Like, look, that's why it's like, come to my house in the day because we'll find out who you are. Because
Start shouting out names.
yeah.
Joe, I know that's you. Just in case. Like.
Yeah. Basically. So it's so they have to kill themselves or whatever. But the vehicle thing, because there's a lot of people who have come forth in stories that they're driving along dirt roads or along the highways on the reservation, and you know something's running alongside the vehicle, and like it's tapping the windows or it's running its hands across the sides of the doors, or even some cases it's jumping in the back. If you have a truck, it's jumping on the bed.
That's a new one for me.
Or like you look in the rear view and you see these red eyes looking at you, and they stink. So you can smell like this ugly smell, and they're tapping on windows, and they're trying to basically like scare you. So the vehicle thing is something that happens, I think, to a lot of people. So don't drive at night on the reservation, because you never know if it's going to happen to you.
Oh my gosh.
Or at least go with people, then you can be scared together.
I was with
Definitely.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say I've definitely made the drive down to like Phoenix, like going through like that area from like Page to Flagstaff at night before, and it's been so dark, like couldn't see anything. And I've always been a little sketched out because I've done that drive by myself and like,
And knowing you, listening to music and whistling.
okay, so but like the whistling thing, it comes up in a lot of different cultures too, where you're not supposed to whistle at night, which I think is interesting. But also, like my grandma would always say, you can always tell like a happy person because they're whistling. And I'm like, now I don't know.
Yeah, your grandma was a skinwalker, dog.
We got those in Kentucky too, I guess.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I've always made that drive, or I have a couple times at night. And it's always been a little just disorienting, like a little creepy when it's super dark and I'm by myself driving along those roads. So yeah, sorry to cut you off.
No. I was it was my girlfriend's brother's birthday last week, and we got together. And he had a bunch of his friends over. One of them who I know decently well, good guy, and he served his Mormon mission in Arizona. And I don't know how the subject came up. Somebody started talking about skinwalkers, and dude, this kid is always happy, always smiling. And the second he heard the word skinwalkers shift in his face, you just see like the happiness being sucked out of his life. It was crazy. And he said, I have a story about skinwalkers, and it's pretty similar to what you've heard about them running alongside the car. But there was one on the other side of my car window, and I was looking at it in the face while we were driving like 60 or 70 miles an hour, down the highway. And the room just got silent.
Anyway,
It was
happy
one of-
birthday.
Yeah. And then he said, I also have a story about a possession and a vampire, but I don't think I can talk about it right now. So that's where he left us.
dirty.
Yeah.
That's dirty.
Oh
And,
my goodness.
I think he went home.
He's like, anyway, I'm out.
Bye.
Yeah. You ruined my night.
Kills the vibe and leaves.
No.
Holy.
Holy cow. That's crazy. Okay, are we ready for story number 2?
I guess.
Okay. So this one is one that my dad told us. And so he's from a different part of the reservation, and in this area, people really live a little bit farther. So um they're neighbors, and they know each other because they know, the families, and there's, connections that way. So, and this is a story that he heard from a neighbor. So he's relaying to us things that were happening in the community. So there was this guy, and he's like a army veteran. Like he just wants to live a quiet life, did his service, and he started noticing that things were happening at his house. So, like things would be missing, or it started off small that way, and then things started progressing. And then he would know, he would get the taps on his window at night, and kind of like the similar common stories where you see somebody standing outside your house and that kind of thing. And so instead of kind of just he let things happen for a while. And then he has decided to take matters into his own hands. So he started putting up cameras outside his house and trying to see if he could catch anything, until eventually he set up a trap outside his house to catch this skinwalker that was around his house. So my dad said one night he was, as he tells it, he caught something on the cameras and the trap went. And so he went out, and of course the main goal is that you want to figure out what their identity, who is it. And so he was trying to get the trap in but wasn't able to see the person's face. So he took a shot at him and he wounded the skinwalker that was in the trap. And so he was like, oh, I wounded it. So he's trying to, pull the trap apart, and so that skinwalker is able to run away. And so he's like, oh, dang it, like I lost I lost it. I had him, but I shot him. So there should be blood, or there should be something, to lead to where this thing went. So he decides to call the police. And the Navajo reservation is interesting because it has its own police force, and there are laws that witch that witchcraft is like a crime, and some like it's a real thing that happens. So they calls the Navajo police and they come over and he tells them, hey, this is what's happening. And so they're like, okay, we'll help you track it. And so they go and they start following, the tracks and the blood and whatnot. And eventually they take it to this house, and it's way out in the distance. It's like this isolated little house in the middle of nowhere, and they track it to this house. And once they get there, the sun's starting to come up and the morning starts to come through, and they noticed that there was a group of women who lived there, and they're doing something. They're like, there's commotion going on. So the police officer and this man, they pull up and they get closer to the house, and they're noticing that there's a person laying on the ground, and the women are trying to hide him and do all this stuff. And then the police officers and the guy like really run because they're hiding something, and they run up, and they saw the man on the ground and he was shot. He had blood coming out of him, and they pulled back, and he was wearing animal skins, and he had on his body he had these like ancient special marks, and they were in ash all over his body. And they found him, and he died because they revealed his identity, and his family were trying to hide him, but they were able to find him. And I guess it was like a friend, it was somebody that they knew well in their community.
Wow.
And he died.
Damn. So, do we know anything about his family? Like, they obviously knew he was a skinwalker. Like, were they skinwalkers too, or some of them, or
I don't know. My dad, I know that there's more to that story, but from what I understand, he was the only one that died.
I'd assume the family would be like ostracized after that.
Well, they were already living like isolated, like they were already outcasts. So I think that they were already,
Living that life.
living under the radar.
Remind me, are you supposed to like put a bullet in black ash, or was there something with ash you told us in the first episode?
I don't remember.
You got to go listen to the first.
Yeah,
episode.
I gotta-
guys, give me a minute. I'll be right back. I feel like that's a thing, but anyway.
Yeah, I just think they're human. Ultimately, so if you can do anything to injure a human, then you would injure them.
Yeah.
When he was caught in the trap, was he in the form of a human, or?
I think he was in his animal form.
Mm.
And then I must have just shaped out of it. Because in the first episode, my grandmother came up against the Skinwalker
Right.
too, and she shot it, and she was able to get its hoof. And then the next morning, she found it. It was parts of a human foot.
Yo, are there women skinwalkers?
Yes, we were talking about this with my brother earlier today, and he thinks there's like more scarier than men, because the women are vicious. Like, I think women are a whole nother level of creatures. So I think there are
Oh
women.
my gosh.
Like
you never hear about them.
you don't.
They're just better than the men.
Yeah,
the
'cause
They're
the
just
men are
better at
reckless
it. They don't get
and
caught in
Only
traps.
only the men ones are dying. Yeah.
So there's a whole new level of fear that like we have not considered.
No, well,
Perfect.
I've heard stories before, like there's skinwalker women who eat babies,
Oh shit.
who like desecrate graves and eat the bodies and things like that.
Oh.
This is kind of crazy, but that's
Oh, and they're scarier because they have longer hair, so they'll put the hair in like in front of their face, and
oh my goodness.
it's
Oh.
creepy.
That theme though is like throughout civilizations all over, like specifically eating babies. Like there's gods in Japan, there's gods in like Middle Eastern cultures that like it's like a woman eating a baby, like a Mesopotamian demon. I can't remember which one, but its role, it's a woman, is to feast upon children. And so like you talk about becoming a skinwalker, you like start a relationship with an evil entity or whatever, but it might very well be like that one. Like Mesopotamian culture and demons are like so old, they're like the very first things. And people say they are like kind of at the root of like still everything. I don't know. It's just like I don't know. I'm drawing parallels that might not be
connecting so
there,
many
but it's just
dots.
crazy hearing similar themes throughout so many cultures. That story is like the first one I've heard of like someone trying to like home alone a skinwalker, like you know what I mean?
Setting
like
a
actively,
trap.
yeah, like okay,
We
like
got cameras up.
yeah.
Yeah, yep. It's because it's I don't know. Maybe it's to some people it might sound funny or like like it, but it's like these things happen like that.
Yeah.
That should be like a tip off to people. Like if people are setting up cameras and are like traps and things, and these are like grown people who are sane.
Mhm.
Like this is a real thing. Like it happens and it happens across the board.
And even if like we want to play I don't know the right term, but like let's say nothing paranormal, nothing supernatural is happening, at the very least it's still like this person believes it, that person believes it, and they're still like acting as if it's real. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like regardless if like there is a it's like it's still scary. It's still way scary to have someone like come into your home and mess with you. I don't know.
No, for sure.
Uh,
It does.
going a little further with my fantastic questions with like types of skinwalkers, is it possible to be, I guess, kind of like born a skinwalker? Like if you had a male and a female skinwalker,
Oh my gosh.
have a child, and
I-
they raise them as like a skinwalker? Does that make sense?
I don't know their full society. I'm not one.
I wondered if there was any stories.
I think I think honestly they probably would eat the baby
Oh.
because it's a responsibility. Like why would you want a responsibility? Why would you want something to tie you down?
Yeah.
They're selfish, so it's like you probably would sacrifice the baby because it's the thing you
More
loved
bones.
Oh my gosh.
to carry your power.
Skinwalkers aren't like falling in love with each other.
Yeah, or this,
I mean-
or like U-turn is. Yeah, I don't think that they are at that level.
They're not like swiping on a skinwalker app or something.
They're not trying to fight each other.
Skinwalkers only.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise, you.
I like to go on long walks.
Well, there's a documentary. I remember my friends they sell at some trading posts in Flagstaff and areas where this person actually tried to make a documentary about skinwalkers, and I heard it was okay.
Navajo person or
Yeah, it was it's one of those things where it's like it looks corny, but I guess a couple of my friends I remember in high school watched it and they're like, yeah, it's kind of legit. Like it's
What?
like they crawl into like these caves and they try to find where they
Bro,
live.
We need to
and
watch
then-
this.
do you know what it's called?
I
I'll
don't
watch it.
remember, but I remember it was sold on DVD for a while, so it might not even be in circulation anymore.
Oh my goodness. If you're listening and you know what it's called, you know where to get a copy, hit us up.
Yeah.
We need to see it.
Ooh. Keep them coming.
Lynn, I was asked my sister, did you want to tell some or are you good?
Sure, I can.
Oh,
Tell
what? Dude,
some?
take my spot. Actually, my chair is really
Here,
uncomfortable.
you can come.
No.
Are you
I
sure?
want both
Are you
the
sure?
sisters on.
Both sisters?
Yeah.
Okay, let's figure this out.
Are you sure?
I can move.
All
I
right,
can
give us.
I meant me coming in. Are you guys sure?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah, of
Really
course.
quick, really quick. 1 second, listeners. Give us 1 second. We're gonna reset up so we can get one more person in here. So it's Lynn, right?
Yeah.
All right, guys. We are blessed with Sister Lynn. She's gonna come on and share a couple stories, I guess.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm excited. Should I just start then?
Sure, unless you want to like introduce yourself or anything you want. Like,
Oh, okay. Well, I'm Lynn, Leah's sister. We are very close and we look very much alike. Almost
Yeah.
like twins. But growing up, Leah was like my protector. Actually, all my siblings were. So a lot of the horrific, scary stuff that we went through, I was asleep for the majority of them.
Yep.
on the first episode, there's a story, and you're like, my little sister's literally slept, so you're the sleeping sister.
I'm the sleeping sister.
Heck yeah.
Every
Lucky
time
you.
every time the chaos came down, like let her sleep. Don't wake her up.
She's just gonna get hysterical. She's just gonna cry.
Yeah, that was me. I was the weenie of the family. But a story I have is like I didn't really go through a lot of the things that my sibling or saw the things that my siblings been through, but I heard them. And my brother, we were at dinner today, and he was talking about where we grew up. He's like, "Yeah, when we would come home from college, me and Leah would hear knocking on the windows. I'd see something like run outside, or like there were snakes in our house, and we would kill them. Or like, how'd these get in our house? And we just like, just normal things on the res. But growing up, and then we were talking about it, we're like, yeah, this is not normal. I think this is witchcraft stuff. But we're like, we're always with that intent of like, we're not afraid and we're not gonna give in to their little tactics. And I could think as kids, we're like, like it's not something we're scared of. Leah had I got all my courage, I think, throughout the years was because I was always with my siblings. Every scary story, I was either asleep among with my siblings or I was with my parents. So when my oldest sister Jenna went and she got married and she started her own family, Leah went to college and my brother went on his mission. I was truly alone with my parents. And my dad would work different jobs around the country, so he would be gone most of the time too. So it was just me and my mom. And my mom worked as a door maid in Holbrook, Arizona, at a for Leah's a little bit clear of what a dorm is. Or
Oh
situation.
yeah. So on they call them in these border towns, along the reservation. So Holbrook is a border town, and a lot of the native kids want to go to school at these public schools off the reservation because they tend to be better. So they build these dormitories that they can live and then go to school. So my mom was a dorm aide, so she helped take care of those the native kids when they were there. And she would work long shifts, so she would start at like in the evening and do night duty. So that's the setting. Is my mom was working night duty as a dorm aide.
Yeah, so I believe she worked till like 3 a.m. that morning. And for some weird reason, she caught a ride to Holbrook somehow. I don't remember the reason. But she said, I need you to come pick me up in Holbrook. And I was a little nervous because I was new to driving. And also the road there during we're deep in the reservation. So there's no street lights. There's going to be no one else on the road. I was so nervous.
And how long of a drive?
It's about 80 miles to
Oh.
Holbrook. It's a good drive.
Just down the road.
Yeah, no, not down the road. I wish. But I remember I was like, I'll leave at midnight. And that night was a full moon. So and it wasn't windy, it was just still. I remember it. And I had made myself dinner and it's just silent. I remember it was just so silent, and every time something moved outside, I like tensed up or like I got ready to like fight. Or every time the dog barked, I'm like, it's barking at like a lizard, it's barking at another dog, like calm down. Just you're gonna be okay. And so I remember 12 o'clock came and I grabbed the keys and I said, I'm just gonna run to the vehicle and I'm just gonna take off. And so
Are you normally this tense, or was this like special? Like something was different?
I think it was normal, but I also just tense because this is the first time I ever spent alone at this
Oh.
house by myself in the middle of the night with none of my family nearby.
So you're psyched out.
So I'm psyched out, but I'm like, I have a duty. I have to get my mom. Like, we gotta do it. There's no one else who could do it. So I run out to the vehicle and I forgot to turn off the lights. And I was like, forget it. So I just like drive off. And so I'm playing George Strait and I'm just trying to calm down. And there's this part to turn off the Holbrook. And my siblings are getting mad at me. They're like, why'd you take that turn off? Why didn't you just go through Winslow through the nice freeway? It's faster, it's safer. But I went through like the back roads because I was new to driving and I didn't want to get on the freeway. Horrible decisions were made that night, but I remember I was going like 55 on a like 60-mile road. And the sides of the roads you had to be careful because they were so skinny, and if you didn't concentrate, then you could swerve off because the sand was so fine on the side of the road. And so I'm shaking thinking of this. And I was driving, I was concentrating, and I saw a thing up ahead. And I was like, I think that's a coyote or something, but I was getting scared. Lo and behold, it's a person walking on the side of the road. And my mom's voice, I'm a new driver, so she's like, if you see someone on the road, slow down and go to the side slowly. So my brother's like, you're supposed to speed up. I'm like, no. I slow down and I go to the side slowly, and I'm like looking at them, and they have long black hair and they're just walking. And I was like, should I look? I was like, I was like, don't look at them, just go. So I sped up to like 60, 65, and I just took off. And I remember I was like, I'm so glad I didn't look back because I just know that that person had an evil face. Or just, why are they out walking like that? I don't understand. So got my mom, told her about it. She's like, well, I'll drive back. And we didn't say anything. So that was the only like scary moment I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
But that was that. That was the end of that. And not until I came back to Utah. I think I told Leah, but I could look right in my second story, right? It might not be done. So the second time was like I've never had, that was the scariest paranormal or skinwalker experience I ever had. I don't even think it was a skinwalker. I think it was just probably a weird guy. But after hearing all the stories my sisters and brothers went through, I was like, man, I'm so glad I've never experienced it. But there was one night, I think something was going on with mom and dad at home, right? With scary stuff, skinwalker stuff. And I went to sleep and I had a dream. And this dream, Leah and I were home and my parents were asleep. And I remember, it was so real. I remember waking up and the lights were still on. I think me and Leah are watching a movie. And Leah says, we have to go turn off the lights in the living room and lock the doors. And I remember feeling this sense of dread. I was like, I don't want to, because the houses and the windows in our houses didn't have shutters. It had little sheets that closed it to give privacy, but those sheets were see-through. So even if you did close it, it was still creepy. So I was like, I don't want to go out there. She goes, well, come out into our little tiny hall and just wait. And then I'm going to run and I'm going to turn off the TV, but just stay there. And so I was like, okay, because on the way to the living room, you pass the kitchen, and this kitchen has a huge window. And that window wasn't covered. And so I saw Leah run, and I was like waiting, and she was standing there, and she's like, I'm scared. There's something in that window. And I said, no, Leah, there's nothing in that window. She's like, I'm not running back. Like, Lynn, look. I was like, no, I don't want to look. She's look. And so I peek out, and sure, like I felt like I was gonna throw up in the dream. There's something at the window going like this, and it had the nastiest yellow teeth and red eyes and claws and the nastiest hair, and it growled and it broke the window. And I woke up screaming. I was like, oh my gosh. And I was just trying to calm down. And I didn't want to wake up Leah because she had work the next day. But I remember just sitting there like, what did I just see? And I don't know, I just had this deep sense of like, I feel like I was meant to see that back on the res as a younger child, but some greater force was like, no, you're not gonna see it. But it was just a tinge of like, that's what's out there. That's what's real. But I couldn't go back to sleep because every time I closed my eyes, I saw its face and its growl. And it wasn't even like it was an animal growl, but it had a man, it was in like an ugly man's voice. And so to go back to the fear, I was like, I've never been scared, but I think that was that dream was to tell me, are you going to be afraid or what are you going to do? So I visualized every time I closed my eyes, I saw the face. So to combat it, I was like, okay, you're going to go out there and tell that thing to go away. This is your chance. So in my dream, I went out there and I snatched its ugly fur off and I told it to go away. And from then on, I think the fear has been relieved. So every time I go home now, I'm like 25 and I'm still afraid to go to that house by myself. But now I have like a newfound strength to go back and be like, I'm not afraid.
Ooh.
That's really cool. You've never had that dream since.
No, never.
Have they been known to ever like manipulate dreams, or like, do you think that was from the Skinwalker or from like something else that's like giving you an experience so that you knew you had that knowledge?
I think it was more of my fear.
Mm.
I think it was more of like, my sisters are very courageous. And I feel like they've always fought my battles of like, we're not going to let Lynne see this. We're going to let her sleep through it.
So that was your battle.
I think that was my battle of like.
You always sleeping, so it had to be a dream.
Yeah. And I never faced it. So I think it was
so
like,
funny.
you got to face it some way or another because you can't keep doing this.
That's funny. We believe, God will speak to us and how we'll understand, and that's unique for everyone. So you always sleep, and he was like, all right, I got to give you a dream.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wake you up.
This sparked a question that I have that's pure ignorance. So forgive me. But are dream catchers authentic?
No.
No.
They're not. Where they come? Where does that
Where do
come
they-
from?
yeah.
It's a white. Well, I mean, I think some tribes believed in it, but it's become so commercialized that it's like it's no, like
So
it's like lost its meaning. Like I'm pretty sure that it had like a really significant sacred meaning than what it is now.
Mm.
at one point, dream catchers were used by some tribes.
Yeah, but as the dream catcher today, like that, it's just like it's a thing you sell in a
Like an
gas
ornament,
station.
yeah.
It's just it's lost its significance. People, girls get tattoos of it and
Yeah.
not knowing the sacredness of it.
But so natives don't use it today.
Well, I guess I rephrase my no. I don't know natives that use them.
Okay.
Is there any other myths like that like people are like, oh, this is
That you wanna
Native
dispel?
American?
Yeah, I think that dreams is something that a lot of people hold as sacred. And it's I don't know how to explain it. Like if we're talking about that land, that connection to the land, and it's also not just the land, it's connection to animals, it's connection to the water and in the earth. It's like the whole life. It's a concept in Navajo that's called Hojon, which is you're in harmony with everything. And so I feel like, yeah, there's like this whole nother level of like subconsciousness and things in consciousness and things like that. And then dreams go along with that. Because I think that, if you don't mind me telling another story,
Go
this
ahead.
is mine specifically because it kind of taps into that. It's not Skinwalker related, but it is tapping into that like dream, there's another level of supernatural going on. So I remember when I was 16, there's a grocery store about like 30 minutes away from our house, and it's the one grocery store for like the next 40-50 miles. Like it's, if you really need to go get groceries, you go get it at this store. And we went at like me and my brother, I was 16, I think he was 18, and we both went at like 8 at night. And we were driving, I was driving, and there's a random stop sign, and I stopped, and then I started accelerating, and I remember it very clearly. I would hit 50 because I was watching the car accelerate, the odometer, and it hit 50, and then we hear this loud loud bang on the windshield. And me and my brother freaked out, like, what was that? Because there's no houses around, there's nobody on the road. And I thought it was a brick. I thought somebody had thrown a brick at the windshield. But my brother goes, but the windshield's not broken. So he says, do not stop. Like rule number one, don't stop, keep going till we get to the grocery store. So we get to the grocery store and we're trying to figure like, what was that? And it was a little owl that was in the hood of right where it hit in the hood and it got caught in that. You know, when you lift up the hood, there's a little crack. It got caught in there. And we were trying, and it was still alive. And I felt so bad. My brother's like, I don't want to. We were so dumb. We're like, we don't want to take it out. Like, we didn't, we just felt bad. So we're like, let's just go home. So we like drove home with the little owl in we're stressed out at this point. So we drove home and we run in and we tell my mom, oh, there's an owl. It's stuck in the windshield and it's still moving. And so at that point, at the house that we lived in, my aunt lives right next door. So there's three houses, and that's a lot of houses on the res are kind of the same way. Where, we have grandpa living here, the uncles, so it's like you're all in one place. So we called over my aunt because she was like, "Oh, what's the commotion?" And when she immediately saw that owl, she freaked out. She's like, "Put it down, don't touch it." And because we grew up in a Christian background, and so she said, "Drop the owl, don't touch it." And so she dropped. We said, "Okay." So we put the owl down, and she said, "Watch the direction it hops away in." And so we're like, I was just like, I just like this poor thing's gonna die. And so she goes, "No, you have to." And so she was watching that direction, like it hopped in. I think it went for it would either towards the north or the east. I forgot. But directions in Navajo culture are very important. Like the sun rises in at the east and the west, and they're sacred directions. And so we watched the owl hop away, and then she was really like upset and like really, you could tell she was like kind of put out. And so my mom, and then when she left, and she's like, I gotta go home. So she's like, I'm going back to my house. So she left, and we're like, Mom, what the heck just happened? And she's like, well, like in traditional ways, like the owl is a symbol of death. Like it's tied to that. And so she's like, don't worry about it. Like, it's fine. Just go to sleep. And so, like, life went on. I went to school, and then 2 weeks later, my dad and my mom came to talk to me. And so my dad is not, he's more traditional. He doesn't, like, he's not Christian like we are. And so he told me that, so my aunt was really upset that I had hit an owl. So she was worried about me. So she and my dad, in that point, in the first episode, I had this encounter with this other skinwalker. So I had that encounter, and then I had this owl thing. So my aunt's like, her soul's in danger. Like, there's something going on to her. So then they go to a medicine man, and I don't know that this is going on. I have no idea. My mom requested that my dad and my aunt didn't tell me till my mom thought it was appropriate. So they went to this medicine man, and they told her, yeah, like my niece, my daughter saw this thing, and then she ran into an owl. And so they're like, what does it mean? And so the medicine man was telling and some of them will tell the future through different means. And so he was saying, oh, the owl, your daughter was supposed to die that night. And so the owl died and gave its life for your daughter. And so she was like she was like, I was protected by something. And he goes, and she's special. Like she can see things. She's connected to that because this person who came to she caught them. Like, I was the one that was awake. I was the one that witnessed that whole thing. I was the one that alerted my family of what was happening. And he's like, she has a connection and she has like a strong medicine. Um, like she knows these things. Like she's sensitive to it. And the owl knew that and knew that she should be alive. And so it gave its life for her. And so I was like, huh. Like, I just like thought about that. I was like, okay. Um, I don't know. I just kind of like toyed with that, and I kind of believe that as I've like analyzed my life, I've kind of like, okay, I can see that because I've like most of the things that happen in our home, they've happened to me, or like I'm the one that saw it, I'm the one that heard it. Um, like at night, I remember when I was when I was like 18, I came home from college. It was me and my brother were sleeping at the same house. My parents never move. Like we're at this, all this stuff happens. We're at the same house, and I was sleeping and I heard, like, it was a windy night and I heard singing. The wind was carrying singing, and I heard it. And my brother went out and like checked, and I hear these things and I'm sensitive to it, but like for a long time, like it took people didn't believe me, or my mom would be like, "Oh, you're making that up." But after that, my whole thing with the medicine and my dad, they're like, "Oh, okay, we can see it. We can see like how like you're like you can." And not like a sixth, I guess it's like a sixth sense in a way where it's like I'm sensitive to that kind of stuff. And um I guess that's why I like scary stories. Like I love hearing it. I'm drawn to these kinds of things. So that's kind of like my background, I guess.
Huh.
I always trust Leah's instincts because there was this one time we were eating dinner and I'm just enjoying dinner, like nothing. I'm not sensitive to anything. And she goes, I think there's someone outside. And I'm already crying. I'm like, stop it. And she's like, and she just runs up and she slams the door and locks it. And I like run back to I run back to my mom's room and I just like, Mom, there's something outside. She's like, stop it. And sure enough, we hear like a huge doom, doom, doom on the door. And we're like, ah, we all start screaming and we're like, Leah, what's right? But it was just a couple people passing by that got kicked out and needed someplace to stay. But her instincts are on point. I trust it so much. Scares me too, though.
Yeah. So it's like little things like that that happen to us. But no, it's more to me, like me and my mom, out of all the family.
I think we've talked about it, but there are just certain people who seem to be like on the right frequency or whatever, but it attracts them, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, we have one friend, like Kevin, I feel like is like that. Then just certain people I've met, like my aunt has so many different experiences. And it seems to like always find her in a way. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's like I fully believe that. I fully believe some people are more attracted. But
Mm.
you once threw it out there, you're like, you guys should come down to the res.
Yeah.
Does that offer still stand?
Yes. It's like I feel like this story, to be honest, these stories that we're telling you are like mild. Like there are wild stories. Like I told you, I'm not going to tell them because they're not mine to tell, but like they are like gnarly. Like they are full on descriptions, fate, like what these skinwalkers look like, what they do, and their ceremonies, and the way that they in intricate detail by people who've witnessed it, or who've heard it from medicine men and different things like that. So you guys are always welcome to come down, and we'll find you the right people.
Oh my goodness.
And it's also really scary when you're outside near a campfire.
Mhm.
And we're like, okay, well, you guys can sleep outside.
Oh,
We're going to go inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys
So we're
gonna-
working on it.
Yeah.
It's so fun, but scary.
Terrifying.
It's terrifying.
That's the best feeling.
Best feeling.
Oh man.
I want to ask about something you brought up on the last episode, and I think that's it for me. But you talked about how your grandma was a well-known medicine woman.
No,
Medicine
so
man?
she wasn't, but my her father, my great grandfather,
Was a well-known medicine man.
And women typically are not medicine women.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But one of the reasons why they were more well-known is because they knew more songs than other medicine men.
I think, yeah. So I think a lot of it depends on, because it's almost like a religion. Like
Mhm.
it's you have all these songs and these ceremonies and all these different things, and you have to get it right. And it's they like a lot of them do sand paintings. If you ever Google Navajo sand paintings, that's another healing. And there's crystal. They look into crystals and they can heal using crystals and tell the future or different things like that. Um, and those are things that are ancient, that are originating from years and years and years. So you to be a medicine man, you need to know those things. And my great grandfather was well known because he knew a lot of those um, ceremonies and songs in their original form, like in their. He paid a lot of attention to that. His knowledge of ceremonies was very um, like very thorough, and he learned from really good people who were also, well known. Um, and also, I think medicine men, it's it also goes along with the people and how much people believe in them. So back in the day, like a lot of people stuck to their cultures and the tradition. So of course, like they um use them, but I think it's different nowadays because a lot of people like we are Christian, me and my sister, and so we weren't raised with ceremonies or songs like that. So I think it just is differs over time.
So I was mostly curious about like what types of songs there are, and then you started talking about like physical objects, whether it's sand painting or like crystals. Like I'd assume there's gotta be ones for the opposite of healing, like songs to hurt or curse. Is that a thing, or is that a wild, stupid assumption?
No, I think I like I said, I don't know them. Like I can't tell you the names, but I like from what I understand, skinwalkers like have their own code. Like they have their own ceremonies, they have their own rites of passages, they have their own songs because it's an ancient form. Like it's witchcraft. They're called witches. So in most witches that I've know of, they have a hierarchy or society or things that they subscribe to. So I'm pretty sure that there are evil songs that they sing and to bring their power and to make their oaths and whatnot. Um, yeah, I think that's it.
So, did you guys have your own character system, like
We
written, or was it all
It's
oral?
all most of it's oral. The United States government. I don't know if you guys know what code talkers are. The Navajo code
Yeah.
talkers. So they used the Navajo language during World War II to wrote it into a code, and it was used at the Battle of Iwo Jima and more in the Pacific to turn the favor into the United States. And that's how a lot of it's how they won the wars using the Navajo language. And at that point, I think that's when it started to be more in written form because they needed it to be. But before that, there's like ancient signs and different things like that, but it's not like I don't think it's like a written out like alphabet.
Alphabet.
Yeah.
And that's probably why it was so like another reason why it was so important to preserve your culture and to be together, because you needed to literally be there to listen to probably your elders to learn. Like you
Yes.
couldn't go to the library, if you're living across the country away from your family to learn about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, it's a lot of it, and it's not just like stories, but it's your family history. Like we have clans, like there's clan systems, and that's how you knew who you are. So that goes to that too.
Wow. Incredible. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I have one quick question.
Hmm.
So when my mom lived on the res, she said she moved there, and I think she was named after the boys' mom, who was Joe. So Mama Joe, she said someone had passed away in the house, and she said that they couldn't go or like sleep or go into the house for a year. Is that a thing you've ever heard of?
Yes, so Navajos, a lot of it, a lot of things are, like a lot of what?
Taboo.
Yeah, there's a lot of taboos, a lot of superstitions, and a lot of like for example, death is one thing that is like you don't talk about it.
Oh, okay.
Death is like, it can be seen as like it's like when a person dies, you're technically supposed to burn the house. You're supposed to burn everything that their belongings. You don't wear it, like you don't keep momentums. You burn where they live, so you always want to have the person who's dying die in the house, because wherever they were, then you got to get rid of that. Like when my grandma died, they rented her a whole, they didn't burn it down, but they like rented her a whole separate trailer so she could pass away in it, so it wouldn't be in somebody else's house. Because it's death is seen as like when someone dies, they die, and you don't want to call that to you. So some people will say, not like I said, the traditions differ across the reservation. So some people may say like, wait a year because we need the house, so don't go in there. But typically, you do want to show some side of respect when a person passes away.
Gotcha. Okay.
What's traditional for Navajos? Like, do you bury your dead? Do you cremate or?
Well, back in the day, yeah, they would put them in the houses and burn them with it. But nowadays we bury them. And I think it's just changed as the world has gotten more modern.
Mhm.
Is there reservation or Navajo slang? Or
Yes,
words?
yes,
Can
there
you teach us some?
is. Go ahead, Lynn.
Huh?
Go ahead, teach them.
I need to be conversing.
So one thing is called, it's A. You just take the A and you stretch it out. A.
Like that's all you say, or is like
You
in
just
the
say
middle?
A, like A.
A?
Like,
Oh.
man, you guys are so funny. A. Like you just like it's like
Oh, almost better. All sick.
A. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
And they add S's to the end of everything. Like wood is woods, sheep is sheeps. So you add S at the end of everything.
Polly's kind of do that.
Yeah.
Like they'd call me Eldest Hatch, like on my mission, Elder
Yeah.
Hatch. But yeah, like
Elta's hatch.
Eldest Hatch. Yeah.
And Skoden is like let's fight. Like
Ooh.
Skoden.
Let's go then. Is that what it is?
Yeah, let's go, but it's Skoden.
Yeah, Skoda.
Studis, like
Studis.
Skoden, like you want to fight, let's go.
There's a joke that we like to do, me and Leah, about Breaking Dawn, like the Twilight movie. Like we're like, oh, we're gonna go watch Dad, we're gonna go watch Breaking Dawn. He goes, oh, you broke down? Okay, I'll come get you. We're like, no, we're gonna go watch Breaking Dawn. He's like,
Breaking
oh, I
Dawn.
know you broke down. That's John.
Yeah, it's like Resi Navajo talk.
Yeah, I'm a little better.
Yeah, she's better at it.
That's funny.
I mean, we could like we'll do it without thinking. But yeah.
I get stronger when we get back home, but my dad's really good at it. He'll be telling a story. He'd be like, her went down to that house, and then he came back. He was all weird. Or like my mom would be like, him, he went down to the house. Yeah, that boy, that guy. What did he look like? I don't know. He's just like,
Yeah.
He doesn't even know. Or like, oh, she's all wishing. Like meaning like, oh, she's just wishing she's all that.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Or like, is that?
We always like to kid, like if Leah's waiting in the car, I like to like pretend I'm like someone trying to get in with her, like, hey, where are you going? Okay, I'll just jump in. I'll jump right up. Okay, like it's just like super res.
Yeah, it's just
love
it's funny.
Yeah.
Randomly, Sean will be like either watching something or like family will come around and he'll just slip right into a southern drawl. And then when DJ's back home, he'll start speaking pidgin all of a sudden.
Yeah, I'll flip the switch.
Yeah.
We were at a few years ago. We were at a restaurant, a sushi joint, and all the waiters were Japanese, and we were getting along with them. And he comes to me and is like, "What do you want?" So I order. I'm like, "I want, I don't know, Philly, Vegas, and Godzilla." and he brings it out, and he brings me my Philly and Vegas and a soda. I'm like, what is this? And he said, "Oh, Coke Zero."
Coke Zero.
I said Coke Zero, but I said Godzilla. Language is funny.
That is funny.
So another thing we say ee when we like if we find something funny, ee, or
Yeah.
we make fun of people who are prepared for some weird reason. Yeah. Or like hey, y'all showed up with like gloves. Ee, like just make fun of people if they're prepared.
But you're secretly jealous.
Yeah. Oh,
I want some gloves.
oh, she all put on her seatbelt. Dang, all safe.
Hey.
I don't drive crazy. Like, yeah, it's just like it
It's
picks
like
up off on each other. We just
Yeah.
tease each other.
And Navajos are like naturally like a funny, like we were talking about this, like Native Americans are like seen as like stoic, serious people, and we are like we're really quiet, but we're humorous people. Like we love to laugh, we love to joke, and we love to roast people. So like if you are
Oh, dude, that's this podcast.
this is how it goes. Like,
Yeah.
that's how Native is. Like if you have a Native friend and they're roasting you and their family's roasting you, like you're in.
You're in.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time, but it's like it's a way of like showing you love someone enough to like you trust. There's trust, so it's like, oh, I'm just gonna make fun of like the worst thing about you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I
And-
love that. That's
And
beautiful.
it's like if someone can't take a joke, it's like gross. Like get away from me.
Yeah.
You guys are, like-
Yeah.
You weed out the
Yeah, like,
loser.
mm.
Yeah. Our dad's super good. We were actually talking about today because we're planning like a real fancy Christmas dinner, and we've never had a fancy Christmas dinner. And Leah was like, I said, "How are you gonna dress?" Leah was like, "I'm just gonna wear a nice shirt." And I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get all dressed up. I'm gonna wear a nice dress." And Leah's like, I could just imagine Dad saying, "Where are you going? Like, why are you dressed up?" Just
Yeah.
like that.
You got a nice
Yeah.
dress.
Yeah, exactly. Who are you trying to impress? Yeah.
What did your guys? Okay, so like it's true. I think common perception is like stoic, serious, and just like there's even a joke on like not The Office. It's the one that you heck
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec, where it's just like everything a Native American person says, like a white person like takes it as like mystical scripture. You know what I'm saying? Have you guys
It's
seen
a strong wind today. What does that mean?
Yeah.
It's just windy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But have you seen the show Reservoir Dogs? Is that what it's the new show?
On
Reservation Dogs.
Reservation
Yeah.
Dogs?
I
Did you guys
haven't
watch
seen
that? Do you have
that.
any thoughts on it?
Have you seen that one? I haven't seen it.
It's new and I liked it, but we were more of like the old, like our parents showed us like old movies, like Dreamkeeper, and that was our time, and so
I wanna
we're more
watch
of
it.
like that kind of humor
Ah.
and that kind of time.
Like I'm pretty sure Reservation Dogs is great. But there's a and I may be ruffling some feathers if Native people listen to this. I'm gonna say it anyway. I think there's a difference between urban natives and natives that grew up on the reservation. And I think, in my opinion, from what I'm hearing, people give me feedback on Reservation Dogs is that taps more into like these Native Americans who didn't grow up on the reservation. And
So different experience.
there's
and, like,
different,
different
and-
humor that comes with that.
yeah, and there's just like a different. I don't know how to explain it. It's just different. Like and I feel like from what I hear, like that's Reservation Dogs is kind of is like that, like the city natives, the urban natives, and they're trying to. So it's not relatable to some Native Americans because that's not what we grew up
Totally.
doing. Because it could be two different things.
But there is a character on there. He shows up. You kind of think he's gonna be stoic and like give you wisdom, but he just cracks jokes the whole time. He's super silly, and so it was like the first time I saw like that side. You know what I mean? But
But that's
Interesting.
true. Yeah, like
Yeah.
there's people like you think that they're mean or like they're
you're like, oh no, like be quiet, like,
Yeah.
be reverent, and then they just like
they're fun. They're the funniest.
That was our grandma. She was scary. I
Really?
was scared of my grandma.
just like out of like respect and
out
stuff.
of respect. Even then, I was just scared of her because she was so strong. But then, yeah, she was a funny lady. Like she knew when to crack jokes and just make you laugh. She was so funny.
I love that. Cool. Any other questions? I'm glad we got some lingo in. What's like the best Navajo food?
I was gonna ask that.
Yeah, that's the important stuff.
The stuff that I really care about.
I think, I mean, to be real honest with you, our traditional foods, we were just trying to make it. We're just trying to live. So it's things like squash and like deer meat and corn, and there's not really a lot of flavors to it. Like it's kind of bland. Come at me, a lot of they're gonna, people are gonna say it, but I'm just gonna say it.
I say the same thing about Polynesian food. I think a lot of Polynesian food is bland, just because there's not a lot of spices in Polynesia to cook with.
Same.
It was
same
just
here.
sea salt,
Yeah.
and that's it. Like
Salt, some pepper.
yeah, no variation in flavor. So it was like,
Yeah.
cool.
Well, so like people will like that's traditional foods, but then there's things like fry bread, like that's really good, and people were like, "Oh, fry bread," but
But it's not.
Yeah, but in my opinion, well, fry bread. So the Navajos, when the U.S. government was trying to relocate them to these different camps and stuff like that, and like the 1800s, they have these group of people, you had to feed them, so they were giving them flour, but the Navajo people don't know what it is. They never had flour, so a lot of people were eating it and they were starving and they would die because they're introducing this whole new food into their system, and they're just eating flour. They don't know what to do with it, so a lot of them are dying. And then eventually, like the soldiers' wives were showing them, this is how you make it. You add, baking powder and water, and then you get fry bread. So that's my beef with fry bread. And people are like, well, it's our culture, not in fry bread. And it's like, well, how do we get it? Like, it's not a traditional food.
It's almost like a symbol of like
that.
that.
Yeah. So I'm not a fan of fry bread, but I know a lot of people like it. Navajo tacos are there's like little rivalries between the tribes. So Navajos make the best fry bread, and I'm saying it because I'm Navajo.
Pull up.
Pull up.
Let's go.
Yeah. So for a while they banned, because a lot of like powwows and things like across different reservations across the country, they were calling them Navajo tacos, but the Navajos weren't making them. So they officially banned. You can't call them Navajo tacos. You have to call them Indian tacos.
What?
Because they were mad that Navajos were doing it better.
Oh, they salty.
They were salty.
That's funny.
Wait, can I ask a ignorant question? There's been a lot of like.
She didn't say yes, bro.
Yeah, you're right. May I?
Yes.
What's up with like the preferred name? Because you hear Indian, you hear Native American, like First Nation. You know what I mean? Like, at least in the circles that I'm in and I hear, it's like all of a sudden like this isn't allowed or this is preferred or like don't say that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, what are your thoughts on that?
Personally, I think it's obviously it's up to the person that you're talking to. But I don't like Indian. I don't like that because originally Christopher Columbus thought he found India, and so he calls we were called Indians.
Isn't it so weird? It just like stayed.
Yeah.
What? What?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't like Indian or American Indian. I prefer Native. But what about you, Lynn? What do you think?
Yeah, my dad always said that. He's like, we're not Indian, we're Native American. So Native American, indigenous. If you want to be fancy, dine. But that's like, I mean, like, I won't be offended if you won't call me dine, because like you have to grow up knowing the culture and language. So I'm not that type of person to jump on to someone who makes a mistake. So yeah, I'm more really impressed with someone if they ask me.
Oh,
I think it's like with anyone else, even if they're asking like their gender or their name or like, what's your name? Like, it's normal. So you're like, I noticed like you're Native American, but is there anything else that you would like to be called? And then I think that's just like helps you get more comfortable asking. And then you also connect with that special person, and then you learn more. And then you just get more comfortable, and also just comfortable with making mistakes too. Because I've made like I went to Hawaii, and there's so many cultures, and they basically straight up told me like, you don't know anything about the world, do you? I was like, I don't. Like, teach me. And they're like, okay, this is what you call this person. Like, this is how you say hello in Fijian. This is how you say hello in New Zealand. And
Bula.
yeah, or boss or something like that. So and Fijian. So even then, I just made so many mistakes. But the people there taught me how to do, like, it's okay. You're learning. It's fine as long as you're not like big headed and don't get offended. You're learning. So intention.
That's cool because like I think there is a lot of fear to be wrong nowadays. So it's nice to hear that like it's okay.
We're always wrong, so at this point we're like totally okay being wrong.
Yeah. So, yeah, we posted a video once of me telling a story about Australia. It's like our most popular video. It has like 5,000 views or something, which is nothing on YouTube, but a lot for us. But like 90% of the comments are like, this kid's an idiot. Like he got everything wrong. Like none of this is right. I said there was mountain lions in Australia. They're like, there's no mountain lions in Australia. And I was like, I was just telling a story. Like, but anyway, yeah. So yeah, we're very used to being wrong, but it's nice. Did you call like a Samoan a Tongan or something?
No, I just thought someone from the Philippines, since I didn't know about their history. So his last name is De Guzman. So I thought
That is
Are you
Mexican.
Spanish?
I thought he
Spanish.
was, and I was like expecting him to get mad at me. He's like, "No, I'm Filipino." Like, and then he told me the history. He's like, "That's okay." Like,
That's how we learn.
Yeah, he's like, "That's I totally get why you'd be confused." He's like, "And then he told me I thought you were like Hispanic too, because you look like it." I was like, "No, I'm Navajo." He's like, "I've never heard what a Navajo is. Tell me about it." So
That's cool.
it was really, Hawaii was a very good place to learn about other people because people were very nice.
And it's such a melting pot.
Yeah, and people were very kind. So I really loved Hawaii for that, just learning about the different cultures.
Love that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, guys. Shall we wrap this up?
Yes.
You two are welcome back anytime, every
Yes.
time. This has been a delight.
It really has been. Yeah. We told you off the pod, but yeah, any chance we get to learn about something new, especially when it's tied to people, is that's got to be our favorite thing. So thank you.
People unabashedly tell us, whenever you have guests on, that's our favorite episode. We're like, so they're like, do more of that. We're like,
me
yeah,
too.
totally. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, thank you. But really they are. And it's like, it's so fun to hear. That was my favorite part of being a missionary, was like the unique opportunity to just hear people's experience and stories. And so it's kind of cool that we're like recreating that here. So thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for coming and sharing. I know it's like, it takes a lot to put yourself out there in your story. So we appreciate it. Any thoughts? Any closing thoughts?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yee, okay.
He's good.
I legit do that every time I get into bed and get cozy. I'm always like, "Ee." But anyway, all right. With that, thank you, listeners. We appreciate all of you. This has been another episode of 3 a.m. We will see you next week. And with that, bye, love, and be safe.
Be careful out there.
Trust your gut. Watch your back.
And let's Skoden. Or Skoden. Dang it, I messed it up.
How do you say bye?
Hogonat.
That.
Oh.
Hey, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of 3 a.m. If you want to support us, visit our Patreon, where patrons have access to exclusive content. If you're not able to support us monetarily, don't worry. This episode is on us. You can still rate and review us on whatever platform you listen to us on. It really does go a long way. You can also follow us on social media. Our handle everywhere, including Patreon, is the 3 a.m. pod. Finally, do you have any scary stories? If so, submit them to our website, the3ampodcast.com. We love any audio or visual aids that can help bring your stories to life. So file uploads are welcome with your written submissions. We're anxious and excited to hear from you.